listening to Fighting Game Follies.
It's the #1 podcast for low-level player opinions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Round 1.
Hello to all my masters, grapplers, set play psychopaths, Wi-Fi warriors, O2ers, tournament organizers. What's up? We back at it another week. Another week of the Fighting Game Follies, episode 11 of the Fighting Game Follies. You already know who it is. I shouldn't even have to explain myself, but I'm going to because I like the sound of my own voice. It's your boy, here for games at BNG, Z Skyward, whatever I'm being called this week. And today, as we do on these glorious 3 to 2-ish days of the weekend, you guys are being blessed with another episode of the Fighting Game Follies. You guys saw the title. You know what we talking about. We talking about non-fighting games that sort of enhance your fighting game, like prowess or like skills or anything. I didn't really know how I wanted to title this episode initially, so we're just gonna like stick with that. I'm probably gonna title it like non-fighting fighting games or like fighting game fundamentals and something, whatever. The point will be across like as I start like explaining myself and start talking about things, but that's besides the point. Sit back, relax, do your homework, study, like keep driving on that car road, whatever you're doing, just like chill out and listen to the smooth and calming voice of your guy right here, the low level fighting game player, as I go and talk about whatever I'm talking about. And with that out the way, I feel like we should just start off strong, with like today's episode, and like let me actually start explaining what I'm talking about. So, non-fighting fighting games, or fighting games like non-fighting games that enhance your fighting game capabilities. You're probably sitting here thinking I sound like a madman. How am I going to improve if I don't do the thing that I'm trying to improve on? And that's very simple. Right? Life is very weird. Life is mysterious. You can learn a lot by not doing anything at all. You can learn a lot of a specific thing by not even having to interact with that specific thing. And that's essentially the concept that we're going to be tackling for today's episode. So I got a couple of things here that I want to talk about that sort of enhance your fighting game capabilities without like really like showing it to you in the best possible way, and then like try and like see if there's any ways that we can start baking this into fighting games like naturally. And I feel like we should start off first with my first talking point here, rhythm games. Now, you're probably sitting here like, "Oh, how do rhythm games like even work in like how do they even remotely work with fighting games, right?" And I'm gonna like there's a clip that I want you guys to see. I'll link it in the description of this episode, but there is a clip by one guy who's really talented musician named Akito Bass. And I feel like I've talked about him before in this series. I don't know if I have or not, but if I haven't, then that's bad on me, cause Akito's a really sick dude, right? Essentially, like he does like mostly covers and or like things of that nature, but some of his like breakout and standout things are, in my opinion, are some of the more experimental stuff that he's done. And what I mean by experimental is he will hook up a like sort of MIDI pad or like some sort of instrument or something, and then like just get to ripping on a game. And let me really see if I can, or really quickly, let me see if I can pull this up so I can like get a better frame of reference, because I know the clip in specific that I want to talk about right now is you guys have all seen it, or if you haven't seen it, you should all see it. It is his Iron Man MVC2 Infinite beat. And this was a big like talking point like when this first came out a year ago, where like people were talking about the combo in general because of that one video, and when it like sort of just made its resurgence. But essentially, once again, I'm gonna link this down in the description below. Essentially, bro links his MIDI piano, like bass pad and everything, and plays a like honestly a pretty solid beat, like following the rhythm of the Iron Man MVC2 beat, or Infinite. Like how I do a fucking Infinite, light punch, medium punch, light kick, heavy kick, go diagonal in whichever way you go, and it's a classic. And it's really like well done. But what this sort of did was show like in a auditory and visual way how there is in fact like a palpable rhythm that can be found in fighting game combos. And he has a lot of other like videos like this in nature. One of my favorites is his tool assisted combo infinite for Dante that he does in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Ultimate. He has another one with Happy Chaos where he does the same thing, same setup like as he did with the MVC2 one, and does the the like Happy Chaos like garbage that everyone did not like the character for like when he came out and still does not like the character for. And like the MVC2 one, it's really good. Like I honestly don't really see. I'm watching it over like now and like I'm just like I can't help but like just not want to jam out because it's sick. But yeah, Aikido Base, he like essentially was like the one who made like a visual and auditory way to show that there is in fact a palpable like way that you can do combos and everything, and like it's really I just think it's really interesting because it like sort of shows newcomers that like you are able to find a rhythm in combos in like just fighting games in general. So obviously let's like that was a long-winded way, but let's loop back into the actual talking point itself, right? Rhythm games. Combos and rhythms can like vary from character to character, game to game. Being able to follow a rhythm and not drop combos is essentially what a rhythm game teaches. I already talked about the Aikido Man clip, which is very important, but there are a lot of other things like this. Like honestly, like I didn't even need to talk about Aikido Base in specific. I could have just like sort of mentioned any like combo music video that like you find on YouTube, because like there are a couple ones. Like I remember back in the or when Dan first dropped, because he had a yeah, Dan had his Infinite back in when he first dropped in Street Fighter 5, and someone made a or not a combo. Someone made like a another beat to his Infinite, like not in the same way that like Aikido did, but like more produced and everything. Like it was a lot more like high. I don't want to say high level because I feel like that's sort of downplaying the work that Aikido does, but it was more. I don't know how to explain it. It just had a lot more like production value to it. I guess I can say, or I guess I should say, it had a lot more production value to it, and I'm looking for this right now, and I'm trying to in here it is. Once again, this will be linked to the description below. Also, a year ago, like, geez, a lot of things from like years back are like talking points now, but sort of goes to show that like no matter what, time isn't really like you can always go back into the past, look at stuff, and like it's still like usable to this day. But this video also again like sort of shows off the thing that I'm talking about in terms of like the rhythm aspect of fighting games and like keeping up combos, like sort of just keep up with the bass and then you like or just find your own rhythm and then like you're able to like just keep the combo going, keep the rhythm up. You mess up the rhythm, you mess up the whole combo. Oh yeah. As for rhythm games that I would suggest trying to play in order to like just understand the overall complexity of like combo structures and everything. Funny enough, there actually is a because I know for a fact I did mention this. There is a rhythm fighting game that came out not too recently, I think I want to say. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but well, okay, no. First off, slight detour. Your only move is hustle. I'm going to be talking about this game like eventually. Wait for that in the future. Like your only move is hustle. That game's really sick. We're going to be talking about that in extensive detail once I get the chance to, and like everything starts to die down for like classes and whatnot. I can't find. I'm just like I'm having so much trouble finding all of my resources and everything. This is insane. This is why I use Opera GX browser because I can look through the browser thing and like see all the games that I wanted to talk about, not sponsored. But if you have the chance, I would suggest swapping over to Opera GX. Really cool, haha. But I digress. I can't find this game. I'm gonna um fighting game. No, no. I can't find this. Oh wait, actually no, hold on. Is this? Yeah, God of Rock. Okay, here it is. God of Rock. This is the game that I wanted to talk about. Or this is a game that I think I mentioned. Yeah, it's a lot more like a guitar rhythm like style or a Guitar Hero style game, but it still does have the principles of fighting games. So if you want to try and like um if you're good at Rhythm Heaven or not Rhythm Heaven, Guitar Hero, and you're able to like understand all of this, I'm horrible at Guitar Hero, dude. Like it's straight. I'm straight dookie. I'm good at like other like rhythm games though. Like I'm solid at Osu and like Friday Night Funkin'. But God of Rock. This is another game that I would suggest if you like sort of want a another visual way of understanding what I'm trying to say here. But essentially, keep the combos up, or you keep the rhythms up. The rhythms translate back to the combos. Uh, I honestly, I just think like the rhythm game aspect of it, or like just keeping up a rhythm in fighting games, is like something that isn't really like talked about all too much. Well, it's just not talked about all too much, but specifically, it's not giving a light to like be shined upon because it's sort of like, oh, you press the buttons in this specific way, and it's like, oh, well, if I can't figure out the timing, how am I supposed to figure out the timing if I can't like, there isn't anything to follow along to. So what I suggest doing is trying to make a tiny little like beat or like drum like loop or something in your head to try and like remember the combo too, and then like from that point forward just like follow that loop there, and then you should get your combo down pat. I have done that for a couple of combos, specifically for my like Ram B&Bs, like when I'm playing gear. Like when I was first playing, that is how I remembered my like Ram stuff back in Xrd. So yeah, just keep the rhythm up, honestly. Like keep the rhythm up, play some rhythm games, and then like everything will sort of fall into place afterwards once you like really learn and like understand the concept. But yeah.
Round two.
Alright, so next up, now that we're like the unmusically inclined person is done talking about music, I think it's about time that we actually get into our second point of this episode. And the second point is probably going to be, or it's going to make a lot more sense when like I start talking about it, which like how I did for the rhythm game, like or yeah, the rhythm game section. But puzzle games. Puzzle games like Tetris, specifically, I'm going to be talking about Tetris, like Puyo Puyo, and like other puzzle games that you can find like also do apply to things like this, but like I like playing Tetris, and I'm specifically gonna talk about Tetris because it's my podcast episode. I can do what I want. But I also just think Tetris is a really good game. If you somehow haven't, then learn how to play Tetris. It isn't really that hard. But I digress. Puzzle games. Puzzle games like can teach you a lot about like things like forward execution and or forward thinking and high level execution, because like once again I'm going to be using Tetris as my example here since that's what I have a like or more of an understanding on. I like know a couple of people would probably say like Puyo Puyo is also the same like this, but I wouldn't know since I've never touched, or I've touched Puyo like twice. But Tetris, like the further you go on, the faster the game gets, and the more that you have to like think forward on with the blocks that you're going to place. You have to figure out the setups that you want to do. You have to figure out how you're going to like move forward with the blocks, how, excuse me, what blocks are going to be where, how those blocks are going to be placed, the orientations, what that's going to mean for the future. And ultimately, the game is trying to teach you about forward thinking. And that forward thinking obviously is very important in fighting games because you're never really thinking about what's happening in the moment. I mean, some players are because that's simply just how they play, but fighting games in essence is a or like fighting games do rely a lot on like figuring out what your opponent is going to be doing and like what they're going like what their options are going to be like not only in the now but also in the future. Like even the intro that I like do almost every episode even talks about this. Set play is very important on figuring out like basically snuffing out as many options that your opponent has as possible and essentially just doomsday prepping for the future. Set play, that's the biggest component of set play. Like Melia Rage, like as soon as she gets that knockdown and she starts like she sets her disc up. Well, I mean that's more of like mix-ups, and like that's what her whole game plan revolves around. So I'm gonna stop trying to talk about melee rage and like shoehorn her into this, but essentially, like set play and forward thinking is very important for fighting games, and like I feel like puzzle games teach this really well. Another thing that they also teach relatively well as well, once again, is execution. Like I said earlier, with Tetris, games get faster, or like the longer that you stay in the like round and the more like blocks that you clear, the game does in fact get faster. And not only do you have to think like in the future, but you also have to have the capabilities to execute whatever you're thinking out and figure out how you're going to move forward with your plan. Because ultimately, if you're not able to, do what you got to do, then you're not going to be able to like do what you got to do. So execution is another big thing about it. And once again, like, obviously Tetris or like Puyo Puyo or like any other puzzle game is not going to have you like 360 input motion in order to try and get you to like clear a level or something. But like still, it's just like you start off small with things like moving left and right, and then eventually like it'll start being like it'll start baking into your brain more, and you'll start to like understand like a lot of things and how the overall like components and everything like fit into each other. But yeah, puzzle games are like a lot more focused on like I guess the execution and just the self, whereas the rhythm games are more focused, or puzzle games, they're a lot more focused on the self and like bettering the self and how to get better at like a specific aspect of like forward thinking. Because knowing me, initially like when I like first started playing fighting games like way back then, obviously I had like zero forethought into anything that I did, and I like almost never tried to like put myself into any advantageous positions. I would always just think, okay, cool, I want to do enough damage. I want to do a cool combo so that I can do damage. I didn't really think about the time of, oh, I have to sacrifice like doing this combo because it's going to get me more damage, because then he's going like my opponent is going to be able to like do something else in retaliation. I can't do this because it's going to put me like like it's going to have me be negative, and he's going to be able to like recover and beat me for it or snuff out one of my moves. And I feel like I started to learn that a lot more when I did start playing Tetris, like or like when I started playing like a more higher level Tetris, like 2 years back, when I like got one of my like boys to mod my 3DS for me. I don't know why, but that was the only thing that I like. No, that is the only thing that I really use it for. But I didn't really learn about like having a good like forward thought or like a forward like mindset when playing fighting games, when I was always just like, oh, I want to like figure out how to do thing. I just want to like do enough damage so that I can make this into like a 2 to 5 touch game. I don't want to like play neutral. I just want to mash buttons. I didn't really put any thought into my game plan or my strategies. And now after playing Tetris and having like that sort of forward thinking and forethought instilled into me, like my entire game plan no longer consists of, oh, I just want to do X, I just want to thing. It's more, okay, how am I going to respond to if like this person does that? How am I going to bait out this burst? Can I bait out this burst? Like, what are they going to do in the future if I do this option? If I super on wake up and he blocks, what is the like how much of a penalty am I going to get for that? Can I mediate that penalty by doing anything? It's just a lot like things like forward thinking and whatnot. Like it is sort of a skill that you like acquire, like not only just for like game to game, but like for character to character as well. But eventually, it is something that like once you experience yourself with it enough and enamor yourself with it, then like it really does pick up and you start to learn a lot like more and a lot faster. And I feel like just to start off that baseline process, like Tetris is a game that like sort of helps out in terms of figuring out how you want to have that process like started. Besides this, it is also a game that, like I said earlier, did like sort of start me onto my path of like having a higher level of mental fort or not mental fortitude, but like forward thinking and like setting up game plans and everything. So It worked for me, and I might say that I'm like a low tier player, but like, I'm solid. I'm like a mid, like that might be what we do for a season two like intro. I call myself a mid still player now, but oh well, I digress. Uh, puzzle games, or yeah, puzzle games. Honestly, I feel like they just help out a lot. They like yeah, I couldn't have really like said it any other way. They just sort of like help with things like forward thinking and execution. And by the way, I forgot to mention this, but if you guys think of like anything different or like have some other points that you would like to bring up, then by all means, please like bring them in the comments as well, because I would like to hear your thoughts on it as well. Or maybe you disagree with me and think of something else, then I would also like to hear that as well. But and yeah, that's really all. I'm just like rambling on at this point. Puzzle games, they help execution and forward thinking.
Round 3.
And last but certainly not least, the other game genre that sort of helps out fighting games, at least in my opinion, and this might seem a tiny bit crazy when I say this, but Soulsborns. Well, this is sort of like a three-ish parter, I want to say, because there are a lot of things that I want to talk about here. But I think we should start off this like little mini part by talking about Soulsborns and just mind games in general. And this is going to focus a lot more on like, well, I'll just get to talking and stop like trying to explain myself. But Soulsborne games, they teach you about pattern recognition, punishing enemies effectively, as well as spacing and not getting hit, and that is essentially all what a Soulsborne does. If you do not know what a Soulsborne game is, then you are sleeping under a rock, and I wish I was under that same rock with you. But Soulsborne, it's essentially a really hard like game genre. You know, Dark Souls, Bloodborne. I already said Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Sekiro, Code Vein. I'm trying to think what else. Oh yeah, the biggest one that came out last year, Elden Ring. Crazy. Um, all of these are Soulsborne games. They essentially punish you very hard for if you do like so much as breathe the wrong way. And I feel like in doing so, it sort of like, or it does its job of teaching players things like pattern recognition from like just from fighting regular enemies to also fighting bosses as well. Teaches them about like other mechanics as well, like you know a little bit of meter management in there with like stamina systems, since you can't just like swing your sword willy nilly. um, and on top of that, it also teaches, like I said earlier, positioning and spacing, which is another really big like fundamental component in fighting games. As like if you are not spaced correctly and you get hit by something that you weren't expecting to get hit by, I bet you can't guess whose fault that's on. Hint, hint, it is you, because you were not in the proper like forward or backwards or like any sort of direction that you're playing. Because you know Tekken players and everything like the third dimension. So obviously characters have like specific movement tech. They have the general movement tech. If your game has a roll, everyone has a roll. Then boom, they have a dodge. Everyone has a dodge. Boom, you have things like that. uh it's just pretty much like there to like sort of teach how to like position yourself effectively into like a really advantageous position. And there's actually something that I like didn't, or I guess I can talk about here as well in this spot, since it like um is here. But if you go and look at Guilty Gear Strive's character select screen, and hold up, because I need to see this again. I don't have it like loaded up with me. But if you look at Guilty Gear Strive's character select screen, and you like press on a character or anything, right? You go look at it, and then you see it's obviously it's your character on left, right hand side, whatever. All the stars shows their like how easy or hard they are to play, some sort of like tagline, another like sort of tagline thing to just give a general overview of how the like character is, like balance, tricky, speed, yada yada. I don't care about all that. It's the thing that's all the way off to the far, I guess, left if you're playing player one side, far right if you're playing player two side, which for the life of me, I did not know what this was supposed to mean until like not too long ago. I want to say like 2 to 4 ish months like back is where I like figured this out. But apparent, and I say like 2 to 4 like month-ish back, but like it's very like easy to see once you like actually look at the like diagram that it's showing you. But it's a little guy, it's a little person, and just letters. And you're probably thinking, oh, what are these letters supposed to be? And it's all of the ranges at which your character is effective. Like it's like it's their most effective ranges. And I did not know this. Like I didn't even know that gear did something like that. And I think it is like that's one of the many like small things that like gear does that it doesn't bring at the forefront, and I think it's insane. And I want more of like games to do things like this. Cause I like if I'm a beginner, it's going to be like just a jumbled clutter mess of things, and I'm not going to be able to understand it. But like just the fact that it's here to begin with is already like really good because like when you're trying to figure out a like character, you're sitting there like, oh, how do I do X, Y, and Z? How am I supposed to play like the game? What is my character's effective ranges? And then it just actively tells you. And I'm looking at a chart right here that like also says like what the effective ranges are for the character, but like this is out of game stuff. Like it's just translated over. Kai, close, he's like B, solid. Or mid, he's like probably at his peak. Far, also pretty solid. Soul, he's like at his peak when he's up close. Mid, he's like pretty solid. Far, C, he's like not really going to be doing all too much. Same thing with May, but reverse it. Or not reverse it, but she essentially has back, but with no K. Giovanna, ABC. Chip, ABC. Like, I did not know like all of the characters had specific things until I like looked at it, and then like man, I it's just one of the things that like are it's like it's a small little detail that like goes underutilized that like I feel like people should like talk about and mention because these are pretty accurate to like you know I mean obviously they would be pretty accurate but like it's really accurate even when the patches like keep getting like changed and things are changed. Like Ramathal is still a BAB, like whether she's close, mid, or far. Honestly, I would say maybe like change the B for close to like maybe an A, but that's just my opinion. Um, but yeah, a little side tangent from the side tangent over. I just think that's something that's really cool, honestly. So yeah, Soulsborne games they sort of teach you about pattern recognition, punishing enemies, and effective like positioning for in order to put yourself into advantageous positions. That's like little mini part one. Mini part two, mind games, because this is something that I just absolutely adore. Mind games are like it can be taught anywhere. The best game that I could probably use for this to give examples rock paper scissors RPS. If we're in the FGC community, I just say RPS, but rock paper scissors, this is the pinnacle, the absolute peak of mind games, and it like when it comes to just outsmarting your opponent. And you're probably thinking, oh, how? That doesn't make sense. It's just rock, paper, scissors. It's random. There's no, like, thing to it. Wrong. You could not be more wrong. There's such a strategy to rock, paper, scissors that it is insane. And I feel like the only way that you can really lose in rock paper scissors is if you're playing against someone who truly does not think about what they're going to throw out, which is virtually impossible because everyone thinks about their next move. So there's only a very, 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 very slim margin of people who can really be beaten in rock paper, who can truly be beaten in rock paper scissors, because everyone else thinks of like throwing another thing out. And this is just me, but like the people that I've played rock paper scissors against, even like randoms that I have not played, or like random people that I just meet online, and I play like RPS for in order to like start off a set or something. It's usually the safest option that they go for is scissors because if they're thinking, correctly with a brain, then the first thing that they're going to do is throw out scissors. Once they throw out scissors, it's obviously a toss in the air because they can go scissors again, thinking you'll go paper, paper, thinking that you'll go rock, or rock, thinking that you'll go scissors, in order to like safely establish yourself again. Normally, how it happens, or this is how all of my rock paper scissors game goes, because what people tend to do is the option that they sort of lost at is the option that they will like pick. So for example, I'm playing rock paper scissors. Someone goes paper, I go rock. They're like, okay, cool. He's going to throw out rock again. So this time I'm going to throw out scissors. Or whoa, I cannot play rock paper scissors. Yeah, okay. Excuse me, that was wild. I all right. Now, ooh, oh, that threw me off like crazy. Um, he throws out paper, I throw out rock. He's like, oh, since I lost at rock, I'm going to throw out scissors to cut his paper, right? Um, Play again. He goes scissors. You go rock to like break the scissors. Boom, like it's now 1-1. Now the thing that he's most likely going to do is go scissors to cut your paper or paper to cover the rock. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain rock paper scissors now that I'm like thinking about this, dude. Oh my god. But essentially, they're just going to try and cover their bases by like choosing the option that would have won the last round. And that's normally how like things work out in my favor. Honestly, like different people are going to play rock paper scissors differently. Like this is just what I've noticed in like my time of playing rock paper scissors. So yeah, that's a mind game that like teaches you a lot. And not only does rock paper scissors teach you a lot, but ultimately it leads into our real final point of this episode, which is going to culminate into the ultimate non-fighting game that teaches you about fighting game stuff: chess. I can't play chess for my life. I don't understand anything about chess. However, I have studied up on so much chess things. Like that time on the internet where like everyone was just enamored with chess. I was looking into it and I was like, yo, this is all right, cool. I'm probably not going to get into it, but like I understand where everyone is coming from. And when I say this is the game of games when it comes to teaching people fighting game like fundamentals and everything, I mean it. And no, you do not have to be a chess master just so you can throw like a shoryu or anything, but high level chess, like when you really think about it and think about all of the things like high level chess like is, and like you just look at it, all of the points that I've said in today's episode, like they make so much sense now. So, for those who somehow do not know, chess, your goal is to put your opponent into check. I don't play chess, so I'm not going to be able to like explain it as well as like someone of a higher caliber would be able to. I'm just here to like explain what I see when I see people playing chess and like sort of equate that back to my fighting game folk over here. But chess, it is the ultimate fighting game. It teaches you general things like how to make setups, risk versus rewards, spacing, mind games, execution, like like positioning. So you can learn so many things from playing chess like that can equate back to a fighting game that it is actually insane. It's disgusting how much you can learn from like just watching chess and like equate it back to a fighting game. Like so many things like setups they can be used to like figure out game plans. We go back to like the forward thinking. You're constantly on the fly and you constantly have to be thinking about your not only your next move but your opponent's next move, how they're going to respond to what you do, your response to what they do, their response to what you've done. There's so much forward thinking in chess that it essentially feels like you have to be able to see into the future just to play the game. Execution, the execution aspect of it is like it's not really like the biggest thing, but like still you have to be able to like eloquently put your pieces on the board in like like a very timely fashion. Like obviously you can still think, but like you have a clock that is ticking down and essentially like giving away the moments that you're able to like really do anything. So you have to be able to move those pieces effectively. You have to be able to execute those plans that you thought up on the fly, like as soon as like humanly possible, right? So that's that high level forward thinking and that execution from the puzzle games. Boom. Soulsborne, the positioning. You have to constantly know about the positioning of like your pieces. You have to know the spaces that they want to be at like almost all of the time. And like obviously the spaces have like specific ways that they can move and whatnot, but like you have to know what's the best outcome for whatever space. You got to figure out how that space is going to move on your opponent's side. You have to like there's so many things in like terms of positioning and spacing that you got to learn for chess that it is imperative that you know these things. So that Soulborn's aspect, right? Positioning, spacing, and punishing. Boom, check. Mind games. Chess is a huge mind game, bro. Like it's a lot of like setting up in order to fake out your opponent and go into another setup that you had like planned out in the back burner that they didn't see cooking, and then as soon as they realize that the dinner is ready, it's already too late because it's on the table. So that forward thinking, that execution, those mind games, boom, check. Rhythm game aspect, there is a high level chess. Sometimes it just like boom, like boom clock, boom clock, boom clock. There's such a like there's a rhythm to it that like you just watch a couple games of like high level chess and you see how fast these guys are moving. It's insane. Like sometimes it's absolutely insane how people can like think so fast, like in so far into the future that like it's like they're going on autopilot or something. And yeah, obviously you still do have like the more slower, more methodical like chess players and everything still doing their thing, but they still move with a level of urgency that is like it's apparent, it's there, you can see it. And like man, just chess is the ultimate non-fighting fighting game. If you do like end up playing chess, or like if you were a part of that time that like everyone was really into chess like on the internet, then kudos to you, because I could not get into chess. I'm trying to like now, because it's always nice to have like a board game you can play every now and again. And like I've been like gassing up chess so much, then like I probably should be playing it. But chess is like it's the ultimate fighting game, and if you haven't, you should most definitely try it. At the very least, like watch some like level stuff, like, or at the very least just read like a tiny like okay chess how to, and then go try and dip your toes into it. But still, man, chess is just like it's the pinnacle of non-fighting fighting games. And that's pretty much all that we have for today's episode for the Fighting Game Follies, episode 11. Like I said before, non-fighting fighting games. Thank you all so much for tuning in and listening. It means so much to me. I really do enjoy it and appreciate it. Next week, man, I don't know. I do have a couple things that I want to talk about, but once again, we'll leave those for surprises, as I do also enjoy doing. Um, in terms of news, I think I might want to try and do something a tiny bit more, like nothing like insanely different. I might just change up the format like a little bit for how we do things. But I'm most like I might not. I'll let you guys know later on, and how you can figure out if I am going to be changing the format or not, or like doing anything different, or just like general updates or anything. Like if I miss a week for an upload. Twitter. Go check my socials. My Twitter, Instagram. I almost said Facebook. My Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I have not uploaded a YouTube video in a good while, but I have a very good excuse for that, and that's because college, man. College just like sort of swamped me with a lot of stuff, and I don't really have the time to like sit down and really record, edit, and do everything myself. But we getting into it, like I'm going to try and come at you guys with a more formal video about talking about it. And like I still do like the YouTube is not dead. Don't worry. Like just because Arxis pushed back the new character for Strive into next month April does not mean that the channel is dead. Content will be arriving soon. Just I ask you all to please be patient. But with that out the way, with all that said and done, once again, thank you so much for tuning in. This been your boy, Grief for Games, Games.png, whatever. I'm rambling. I'll see you all in the next one, and peace out.